Good morning and welcome to the Morning Scoop for Tuesday, October 13th. This is your daily Buckeye Fix. I'm Tom Moore. The first football Saturday of the Big Ten season, 11 days away. The game against Michigan kicks off in 59 days. We also just learned on Monday that Illinois and Wisconsin will kick off the Big Ten season next Friday night in Madison. So there will be real, honest to goodness Big Ten football played in just 10 days. Get excited, or at least as excited as you can get for Illinois football. That's enough about the Illini. Let's talk some Buckeyes this morning. My guest is Buckeye Scoop beat reporter Tony Gerdeman. He just released the latest edition of what is quickly becoming one of my favorite features on the site called What I Know, What I Think, What I Wonder. It's a pretty thorough look at Tony's insights and thoughts on the team, as well as some lingering questions. But Tony, one of the things you said you knew was about a guy who could turn out to be maybe the most compelling story of the fall. I mean, this is a team that is loaded with really interesting stories. But there's a guy who, if he can just get on the field, that might be one of the most interesting stories of the fall.
Yeah, redshirt sophomore wide receiver Cameron Babb, who has torn an ACL 3 times now, I believe, once in high school and once each year at Ohio State. And now he seems to be healthy, but there's still the process of getting back to where he was because remember, he was a top 100 recruit. He would have fit in very well with all of the other highly ranked receivers that Brian Hartline has been signing. But this is a guy who has dealt with, severe injuries and has continued to rehab and fight back. And not only that, but has become one of the leaders in the room. And he's one of the leaders for the young guys. And we know with 4 freshmen in there, you need as many leaders as you can have, and he's been doing that and has done that. And what I wrote is it's one thing to focus on yourself and come back from that. It's another thing while you're doing that to also bring guys along, guys who are probably going to play in front of you until you are fully back. And even though he is practicing and all of that stuff, there's still, when you're an elite athlete, it takes a little bit of time to get back to that level. And so he's just a selfless player who is all along been doing everything he can for himself, but also doing everything he can for his fellow receivers. And that's why he has, in respect of his teammates, his coaches, teammates' parents, love him as well. And we've, met some of his parents and just a guy that, like you said, could be a really good story and somebody, even as impartial media, it's easy to root for that guy.
Yeah, I mean, whenever you have a guy who is like fought through injuries and injuries and injuries, it's real easy to root for, no matter what uniform he's wearing for. Like, you just want to see people get a chance to do the thing they've been working their whole lives for. He's a really interesting case because I mean, right now he's this potential heartwarming story, but you rewind 3 years, and all the stuff people were saying about the current crop of Ohio State freshman phenom wide receivers, they were saying about Cameron Babb, it was, oh man, wait till Cameron Babb gets on campus and you've got to see his highlight reel. He is an incredible athlete. So, I don't think the expectation is that he's going to be back at that level immediately this fall, but if he's back to anything close to that level at some point, that will be an incredible story. The other layer, I mean, you kind of talked about his parents a little bit. His stepmom, Amanda Babb, is the president of the Ohio State Parents Association. So Cameron Babb has been working very, very hard to get back on the field. Amanda Babb was working very, very hard to get the Ohio State football team back on the field with her organization. I mean, this is a family that really, really, really wants to see football. When I talked to her, she talked about how much it would mean to her to see him back on the field. And that's one of those guys who, this is not a Rudy story, obviously, but this is a story that I think that would be about as excited as the whole team would get if Cameron Babb, caught a touchdown pass, even if it's the fourth quarter against Rutgers. If Cameron Babb caught a touchdown pass or something this year, you might see the team just lose its mind on the sideline.
Yeah, and it's similar to Johnny Dixon, who really missed his first 3 years and then was able to play and contribute his final 2 years. And the amount of rehab with Ohio State head trainer Adam Stewart that is involved is huge. And you think of everything that they put into this, and then to get each year to suffer an injury and we've seen guys get hurt at practice, and they know, like Justin Hilliard last spring, when he knew it was bad, and yet they come back and they're strong again, and you see so many people wanting them to do well, and then they almost lost it. They almost lost the season this year, and now that's all in front of them. And yeah, like with Johnny Dixon, where he almost quit, and he had to be talked into staying by his teammates. And I don't know that it ever got to that point with Cameron Babb, but the support system at Ohio State has been there for him as well, because nobody wants to go through this. Justin Hilliard has had guys there with him. Tuff Borland was, there with Justin Hilliard. They suffered similar injuries, and Master Teague as well. And so Cameron Babb isn't the first guy to go through this. Maybe he's the latest, but 3 years in a row to suffer an injury like that, and now to maybe be on the cusp of some sort of playing time. Yeah, it's one of the stories to watch in a season unlike any other.
And let's make a smooth transition to one of the other guys coming back from an injury. It was one of your I wonders, Master Teague. He suffered a very serious injury the first day of spring ball when we were there, and then a week later the world went into lockdown. So this was it's not a great time to suffer. There is no great time to suffer a serious injury. That was not a particularly great one. What has that whole process meant to Master Teague this year?
Yeah, and that's one of the great things about Master Teague as well. His maturity has been unbelievable. He said the injury was a blessing to him, and it has allowed him to, I guess, rebuild himself in terms of his tendons and what they can handle, and his agility, that he's worked on that, because he went back and he saw the tape and thought maybe he was a little too stiff at times, and so he worked a lot on that. And I'm just wondering what that'll look like this year. How will we notice it? Will there be a random jump cut and you're like, hey, he doesn't do that, and now maybe he does at 5'11", 225 pounds, running in the low 4.4s. Maybe now he's the jump cutter, or maybe he's a guy that just makes more people miss than he did last year. And if that's who he is, then he should be pretty darn good, because just doing what they asked him to do last year, he accomplished quite a bit, 6 yards a carry or whatever. And now they will also be doing things more suited to him. Whereas last year it was, let's just get out of this game. Let's finish, let's wrap this fourth quarter up, do what you do, and then, or do what we do. Now this year, maybe it'll be more of, okay, let's do what you do. And that's also what I'm interested in seeing, and seeing maybe his skill set fully realized and playing into that, rather than just plugging him and playing him. Let's see what he can do, and let's see if maybe he can put a dent into a lot of those maybe Trey Sermon expectations. As we know, that's going to be a two-headed monster there, with a lot of people siding on Trey Sermon as the number one. From what we hear, what we're talking about, it's going to be a 1A, 1B, and I don't know which of these guys will be that 1A.
Yeah, that is not a bad problem to have. A couple different guys who bring probably slightly different skill sets to the table, but both absolutely capable of playing at the level they presumably need them to play. And running behind that offensive line, that won't hurt. That won't hurt either of their productions probably this year. And that offensive line, it was the subject of one of your I thinks. It was about a freshman offensive line. Okay, true freshman offensive line. Okay, everyone's kind of going, okay, what about Paris Johnson? Aha, friends. It was not about Paris Johnson, which was, okay, this isn't officially intriguing, because I think everyone went, okay, Paris Johnson, Luke Whippler, those are the two guys who are potentially going to be, in that conversation for the two deep in their freshman year. And then they had four guys who were like, yeah, maybe a little bit further down the road. It may need a development year or two. But there was one of those guys who keeps showing up in those videos, and at some point that maybe means something.
Yeah, freshman left tackle, who, yeah, of course it's Paris Johnson, but no, it's Josh Fryer, who, I mean, this is something that's been going on for a while now, where when Ohio State would show videos and you would see number 70 in there, and the first couple of times I'd have to grab the roster, like, who is number 70? Because it's not a familiar number. We haven't seen it in a while. Like, is that a walk-on in the two deep? No, it's Josh Fryer, and he's always in that two deep at left tackle. And then you look to see who else is on that offensive line with them, and you see like DeJuan Jones and Paris Johnson on the other side. And this is part of the detective work that we have to do, Tom. You know this, like when, as we mentioned many times, if a coach or a teammate mentions a player out of the blue, you put that in the back of your head. If you keep seeing people pop up on these videos or in the photos in big moments, or just one on good against good, or things like that, when players keep popping up, you put that away. And that's the thing with Josh Fryer. And then lo and behold, he becomes the first offensive lineman to lose his black stripe. And that was I'm sure a lot of people were shocked. I think for like me, it was like confirmation that, okay, then we weren't just seeing him for no good reason. He's actually pretty good. And if they can get him to help out that two deep, that leaves some possibilities for DeJuan Jones to do some other things, and just gives them versatility. And I don't think anybody, as you were saying, like would have put him in a two deep back in the winter. Yeah, Luke Whippler, he's going to be the backup center, of course, and Paris Johnson, heck, he might start somewhere. And everybody else, well, year 2, year 3, year 4, we'll see what happens. But yeah, it looks like when you're already making this kind of impact, then you got to consider them possibly, like Josh Fryer, a possibility as a starter next year, or at least, certainly competing to start somewhere on that offensive line next year.
More starting caliber offensive linemen, especially young starting caliber offensive linemen, if you don't need to rely on them to actually make that start that freshman year, that's potentially a real good sign down the line. But yeah, just so people sort of know how this works, during a normal year, we would get to watch a bunch of practices, at least a few practices, some practices. This year we got to watch about 30 minutes, and it was, mostly stretching and individual drills, so you couldn't glean a ton out of that other than, kind of order they were running in. But you can sort of piece together between the videos they're tweeting out, look at who's running with the other guys, which freshmen are out there when the other guys who are in that two deep conversation or potentially in that starting conversation, if they're out next to those guys and you see that repeatedly, that means something. When coaches talk about players, when it's not just tell me about Josh Fryer, when someone actually just said, who's standing out, and Josh Fryer is one of the first names you hear, okay, that means something. When a guy loses his black stripe early, okay, that means something. And when you have all three of those, it's like, okay, now, that's a lot of smoke. There's probably some Fryer under there. See what I did? No. Okay, Tony's shaking his head. Apparently not. Apparently no. Okay, sorry. Thumbs down. Well, I guess I'm going to be executed by lions now. The Caesar has ruled. While I'm eating alive, would you like to give people one more note from your column? One other thing that you want to share?
Actually, it's something I didn't even put in this week, and I apologize for that. And it's just more about Marcus Hooker at safety, who, from watching the videos, he's showing up with the ones constantly. And it's actually, I've been trying to get him in there into one of these columns for a while now, and I just don't want to make these unreadable and too long. So, some of it doesn't make it. But that's a guy who, we've talked about him before. He flashed in the one spring practice we got to see that we've had to formulate quite a bit of opinion, but that opinion seems to be following through on, what we're hearing and also these clips. And, the last time there was a hooker boy in that secondary was pretty good in 2016. And now if the younger brother is anything like his older brother, it'll be interesting to see how they do that combination with Josh Proctor and how they make that work, and how much two safety. How often is Marcus Hooker the deep safety? We've assumed it was going to be Josh Pryor for a while, and maybe that's not the safest assumption. Of course, without seeing anything, Tom, all assumptions, I guess, are a little unsafe at this point. But again, it's a guy where I think every time we've seen the first team defense in photos or in videos, I believe he's been out there. So if that's the case, then keep that in mind. And I guess expect to see him out there when the Buckeyes kick off against Nebraska here in how many days?
I think it was 11 days. Sounds
That's
right?
pretty good.
Pretty good. Well, Buckeye Scoop members can find that full column on our Ask the Insiders board. We just touched on 3, and he gave you a freebie, but 3 of the 12 items in this week's column. And as I've said before, if you are the type of person who is interested enough to listen to this episode all the way through, which if you're hearing these words, that means you are the type of person who would absolutely love to be a member of Buckeye Scoop. You can sign up for a membership at buckeyescoop.com. There are annual and monthly memberships, so if you're on the fence, give it a month and see. But we are pretty confident you'll want to stick around. That first month now includes the first third of the regular season. First 3 games, Nebraska, Penn State, Rutgers. Yes, you get free Rutgers coverage with your membership. You're welcome. So just visit buckeyescoop.com to become a member there. Monday, Ohio State made it official. We had seen this, Fox tweeted this out 3 weeks ago, but official now that the Nebraska game and Michigan games will both be on Fox at noon this year. So you can, if you want to set your countdown clock, it is officially a noon kickoff on October 24th. Tony and I will be talking to some Ohio State coaches plus Justin Fields later today. We will have a full recap of that press conference on an episode of Buckeye Weekly that will drop later today. But Tony, why don't you give us something that you know, think, or wonder about the quarterback position at Ohio State going into that press conference?
I wonder if Ryan Day will tell us the depth chart at quarterback.
I don't. The answer is no. You must be new here, friend.
I know, and there's going to be so much asking of, if you had a game today, who would, we don't, I don't want to get into that. Or the one thing that we will end up not knowing is who is backing up Justin Fields. And, maybe he will just say Gunnar Hoke because that's the easy answer. So I am interested to see what, when he gets pinned down, what he responds with. And we've heard and people have told us that C.J. Stroud is looking very good and Jack Miller is impressing as well. And as we've talked about, can Gunnar Hoke hold those guys off because they were going to get some early snaps more than he was in camp. And, has he gotten to that point now where he is getting more snaps than they are? And are those snaps being productive? So we'll, get a good update from both Day and Corey Dennis, and maybe we'll get some answers.
And we can ask Justin Fields, too. We got to talk to Justin Fields like a week ago. We talked to Justin Fields again. We've gotten all the answers we need on veganisms. Now we can ask him about the backup quarterbacks instead. So that'll be great. You can hear our recap of those interviews on an episode of Buckeye Weekly that will drop later today. You can find Buckeye Weekly and all of our great podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spreaker, all sorts of, wherever fine podcasts are sold. Just search Buckeye Scoop to find all of those. You can subscribe right there. Also, please leave us a 5-star rating and review while you're there. That helps new folks find the shows. That will do it for today. Thank you guys for listening. Have a great day. We will talk to you tomorrow.